as our military engages in brave interdiction on the high seas off the coast of Venezuela. Plus, the University of Michigan needs a new football coach because yesterday their head man started wielding a knife at his paramour. We've got reaction and analysis, plus theft of government money by government workers goes far beyond Minnesota. We've got a story from LA that is peak Newsom-era corruption. And bobcat hunting season has just been stopped early in Indiana. Is this a win for the feline or a disruption of nature? It's all next on the Matt Gaetz Show. Let's do this. We're shaking up Washington, D.C. We're breaking the fever.
You ever watch this guy on television? It's like a machine. He's great. Matt Gaetz.
As we join you this evening, it's been a busy week in Congress. The body passed the National Defense Authorization Act. It lays out $900 billion for national defense. Congressman Jimmy Patronis represents one of the most military-heavy in the country. He'll be here in moments to break down the legislation. And on the high seas, we are seeing great execution by our military. The FBI, Department of Homeland Security, Coast Guard, and other federal agencies. A major oil tanker carrying Venezuelan oil to Iran was intercepted. Incredible, incredible work. This is tough stuff, and we are glad that there are patriotic Americans willing to do it. And as the year winds down, all focus is on an affordability agenda for the country. My strong belief is that whichever political party can convince the country that their plans will make life more affordable will win the all-important midterm elections. Let's check the scoreboard. Gasoline prices just fell to levels not seen in 4 years, with the national average reported around $2.98 per gallon. That's a real relief for a lot of rural and blue-collar Americans. They drive a lot to get to work, to get to groceries. Inflation has declined from its post-pandemic peak. Month-over-month inflation readings have shown consistent moderation, signaling stabilizing household costs. As inflation cooled, real wages strengthen. When inflation falls faster than wages grow, households experience more purchasing power, allowing paychecks to go further than they did during these peak inflation days. While housing affordability remains a national challenge, rent growth has slowed significantly. Trump's deportation agenda could really ease housing prices. That was a point made by senior DHS official Micah Bach on our program this week.
In high urban development areas that have seen an increase in rent prices due to illegal immigration, you've seen those housing prices plummet.
New multifamily construction delivered hundreds of thousands of units nationwide. That increased supply and may have been part of why rent increases were tempered in major cities. Grocery inflation hit its 40-year highs during the Biden era in 2022. Prices for key staples like eggs, poultry, dairy, and produce stabilized or fell during 2025. That reverses those earlier surges. U.S. manufacturing output has risen compared to the pre-pandemic era lows. Increased factory activity and reshoring trends have supported higher paying domestic jobs, improving income stability for a lot of working American families. The stock market has also surged, hitting multiple record highs under Trump, and over half of American households hold retirement accounts that are somehow tied to market performance. This is creating long-term financial security. Life has grown more affordable during Trump's second term because inflation has come down, real wages have improved, and gas and food prices have seen the growth of those indexes slowed. Housing pressures have eased in many markets, combined with strong job markets and rising household wealth. These conditions contribute to greater economic breathing room for American families. Communicating this message and having these improving economic conditions felt by everyday Americans, this is the key for Republicans to hold power. Joining us now, Florida Congressman Jimmy Patronis. Jimmy, great to see you. The NDAA just passed. What should Americans expect with this big authorization?
So, Matt, thank you for having me, and thank you for your service. Look, we're going to see pay raises for our armed services, 3.8%. We're going to start making sure that infrastructure dollars are getting out there to make sure our nation's best have the type of facilities they need in order to do their job. One of the provisions in the bill that I was proud to get in, we actually had during the Biden administration a priority to ensure that all new vehicles purchased by the military had to be EVs, which is crazy. So we basically stripped that provision out, saying, you do not have to force our military to buy EVs for their vehicles on the installations to do their day-to-day operations and work.
Secretary Hegseth has had a lot of cultural changes at the Pentagon. We hope that those were also ensconced in law in the NDAA. And there were a few hot button issues like IVF for military families and whether Representative Stefanik would get these anti-government weaponization provisions in. It seemed like that all was able to shake out just fine. What's your report on those, some of those hot button issues?
So yeah, we brought it all in for a landing, and look, Matt, you know this process better than anybody else I know. We've got a number of members of Congress that are looking to seek office in other areas for their future, whether it be running for statewide. In the case of Elise, she's running for governor, and some of these things become real important take-home issues for them. So Mike Johnson thinks the world of you, spends a lot of time doing a lot of hand-holding and making these policies be part of a future solution as we continue to make sure our military gets what they deserve.
Our military showed exceptional skill on the high seas just south of Florida as the Venezuelan vessel that was headed to Iran was apprehended. Is Congress being briefed on the plan here? What's your reaction to that highly successful maneuver?
So I was just talking to some folks in my office about exactly that. And the one element of this conversation that's not being talked about, you think of the thousands and thousands of labor of police man hours that now are not being out fighting drug dealers, doing covert surveillance, stakeouts, undercover operations, putting law enforcement at life. And Matt, I've always been a big believer. I don't like fixing problems. I like preventing problems. And this is exactly what President Trump is doing. He is preventing these problems from ever making it to U.S. shores. No different why the wall has been so important to him and his legacy. With the oil tanker, I was talking to Mario Diaz-Balart, a South Florida member of Congress earlier today, about this oil tanker has been notorious for hiding its track, its pattern, doing ghost images, shipping this illegal oil out of a sanctioned Venezuela into Iraq. So yeah, look, I think what President Trump did was warranted, and I continue to wish him success and luck in Pete Hegseth's leadership on this.
I want to talk about the vote in the Senate today. Disappointing that they were not able to proceed on to the legislation that Senator Cassidy and others had advanced to do what President Trump has called for and utilize the Obamacare COVID subsidies for enhancements in health savings accounts. What's your reaction to the Senate's vote, and where does that leave the Congress when dealing with these extensions and what to do with the funds?
Well, unfortunately, the Senate is kind of broken. And it's kind of broken. It actually is broken. When you look at, we're trying to bring a solution to bear that empowers the policyholder to shop with their tax dollars in order to get the best medical home possible. We're trying to take a Obamacare crisis and be able to train and bring some market-based solutions to place where those policyholders then can go shop and take their dollars where they get the best bang for their buck. Rick Scott has always been a proponent for transparency in the medical delivery system. This is where Senator Cassidy's coming from, but it's unfortunate that the insurance companies, the PBMs, these players, we're trying to take apart who the problems are with this. And this is probably more of a shakeup than they're expecting. And that's why they would just simply like a 2-year extension of these subsidies that unfortunately is just kicking the can down the road for 2 more years.
Yeah, we had an opportunity for a Republican plan to advance. Again, Rick Scott's got a long history of innovating in this healthcare efficiency space. And when you see now that not occur, is the only thing left to be a discharge petition in the House where Democrats team up with Congressman Lawler and maybe some others in the New York delegation to roll the majority of Republicans and get these Obamacare extensions.
Well, and the discharge position is not the way you craft policy in this process. It's painful, it's challenging, but here we are. We have got barely a 5-seat majority. And when you've got so many members of Congress that have other priorities for themselves, ultimately it makes it hard to bring these in for a landing. And I said, You know Mike Johnson as well as anybody. You used to be seatmates. He is working around the clock with incredible patience to try to bring the reality of some common sense, true conservative policy to the forefront. So I truly hope that the discharge position route is not what we see, because we definitely have those blue state Republicans that are just having a lot of difficulty supporting the policy that we need to pass.
A final question for you, Congressman. I got to know you as a restaurant owner, someone who regularly dealt with a lot of Americans who were blue collar, service industry, living paycheck to paycheck. And I think that the upcoming midterms will be decided by who best answers the question, what will you do to make life more affordable? How do you think Republicans are going to answer that question to the people who I know you care so much for and spent most of your life working right alongside?
Well, Matt, I've served you at many a stuffed flounder at my family's restaurant. And, I think that's what was so important to President Trump, to get the one big, beautiful bill passed as quickly as we could. As you know, it does not take, it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take 6 months, a year, 8 months for the type of savings, the tax savings, to actually make it down and affect somebody's pocketbook. So whether it be the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, 85% of our seniors not paying any income tax on Social Security. These things will not become a reality where they feel it overnight. So, I'm looking forward as that trickling effect starts to make it in, and that pocketbook starts to feel a little more filled because of President Trump's leadership.
Florida Congressman Jimmy Patronis, congratulations on the NDAA passing, and thanks for joining us.
Say hey to Lewis for me.
Will do.